up, away, ay, 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 ay. Away up, ay, 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 away, ay, 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 away, ay, 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 ay.
It starts like a voice. It starts like a voice, a vibration we all know, emanating from a beginning or an end. It starts like a trickle, a sweet sound of soft yet penetrating rain. It starts like a song we always wanted to sing, but never had the chance until our sisters reminded us of the words. It feels like just the right time and long past due, for every prayer is heard and every moment new. For every moment we knew that all we love is sacred and always will be. We remember to keep giving when all we had was taken. We remember that all that was taken can never belong to anyone. To live is to share, for we are living because she is sharing. We are living her song, dreaming her dream, remembering her dance. For every moment we know that all we love is sacred and always will be. Hi everyone, welcome to The Bridge. I'm your host Kira Young, and you've reached me on Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com. We are also simulcasting with Real Liberty Media today. It's Saturday, the 7th of January, 2017, and it is the first show of the year. And we're going to do a little virtual water protectors hang around the fire, and just be talking about the things that have been going on that concern us, and what's next. What are the next steps in the movement? My first guest prefers to be called BeeBop. Just an FYI, we are there's been a grand jury convened to investigate water protectors, so not everybody is going to come on here and tell you what their real name is for that particular reason, as well as others. But most of the people that are coming on tonight and that have told me they could make either all or a portion of the show already have been arrested. They already know who they are. We're going to try to get BJ Nastasio Bravo on. He turned himself in this week, and he was on a few weeks ago, so you'll hear how that went. And then we're hoping that Kanahu Manuel will join us in the very last half hour of the show. She's in a prison visit right now in California for somebody that she's been advocating for, who's been in jail wrongfully convicted. So people are doing a lot of great work, not just water protecting, but lots of good work. So let's see if I can get my first guest in here, and just add him here.
Hello?
Hi, BeeBop. You're on the air. Welcome to The Bridge with Kira.
Hey, thanks, Kira.
So I told everybody that basically this is going to be like a virtual hang around the fire of water protectors and people who in the movement. We're going to talk about what's really going on and what's going to happen next.
Awesome.
Cool. So one of the things that has been really disappointing has been what people are calling the tribe's sellout. And this week's meetings where they told the people who are the holdouts that are still there to really, it's time to really get going, and they gave them like a 10-day notice or something to relocate to a different camp.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think. Go ahead.
Yeah. I just wanted to say, what are your thoughts about those happenings?
Well, I know that they're trying to make a move to, because they say that, the river's going to be flooded, the dam's going to cut loose, and they're going to open up the water and bring it up higher. I know some of that was discussed in the meeting, that they were concerned about, everybody cleaning up really good, because there's so many abandoned tents and trash and canvases and materials, still laying around in the bottom of the camp. So they're, some people are saying they're concerned about how much junk and trash is going to float down the river, and also the safety of those in camp. They do cut the dam loose every year. So, but I also think that they're not supportive, regardless of whether they would cut the dam loose or not. They've been trying to quash the movement for quite a while.
Mm-hmm.
And there's people call it division in the movement, because people are supportive of the BIA, IRA government, of Standing Rock Tribal Council, and whenever somebody called me propagandist today, because I had made the comment yesterday that it's a comparison between what the difference was that, Standing Rock Tribal Council voted to use the funds that were allocated by donators strictly for camp and for water protectors to cover their casino debts and incurred debts that they claim they've gotten since all this happens. And, really, we know that for a fact that the casino was booked completely for months,
mm-hmm.
and the line out of the restaurant was going out the door constantly, and you couldn't even book a room hardly for months. So
mm-hmm.
I find it hard to believe that there was any debt incurred because of the water protectors.
Yeah, I do
and
too.
I think a lot of other, and a lot of people know better than that. But you have a situation where if you're able to post live feeds, and you're able to post on Facebook 24/7 and so-called give the updates, the so-called updates that people say they're giving,
mm-hmm.
you're more than likely at the casino and not at camp. And that's just a basic fact of,
mm-hmm.
That we couldn't get out on Wi-Fi or even phone most of the time at the casino.
Right.
So I had made the comment, the comparison is sort of, it's not a full-blown comparison, but, when the housing crisis started, there was $5 million allocated towards trying to, correct that. And the CEOs and the company leaders ended up taking that into their own pockets and, covering their retirements or their bonuses or whatnot. So, it's a disaster capitalism where I think that, we've got opportunists that are politicians and also opportunists just in general, whether they're nonprofits, and I'm not going to say anybody in particular, but
mm-hmm.
There's been a lot of money allocated strictly towards trying to protect the water that has gone to people pretending they're protecting the water.
So, water protection theater.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's not about division. It's about weeding out those that are going to stand and those that aren't. And I some of the people that I've separated with, as far as alliances with, I've had a lot of respect for them for a long time. But when they start backing the tribe's decision to basically, I don't know if you'd call that embezzlement or not, but it's definitely a misappropriation of funds whenever intentions are given towards certain donations that are supposed to go towards water protection and water protectors, and it's not supposed to go into the coffers of the casino or the tribal funds. It's there to protect the water and those that are there trying to protect the water. So.
The first thing that occurred to me was that, well, first it really chapped my ass when that money went to the casino. It's like another slap in the face, because when I was there early November, it was obvious that it was a casino policy to treat water protectors like garbage. That was completely obvious. The attitude.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
And then they had plugged up all the plugs in there, so you couldn't charge your stuff up. And then even if you're eating, I mean, water protectors, even if they're not staying there, or if they're all getting together and taking a shower in one room, they're still spending money. They're still eating there. They're still,
Absolutely.
Plus, it's the tribe's casino. The tribe put the call out for these water protectors, who then responded. And then basically there was that activity that was like it was a slap in the face. So that occurred to me.
There was a lot of absolutely. There was a lot of misinformation on this issue from the beginning. There was these narratives given by people that said this was just about Standing Rock Tribe, and it's anywhere on the other side of the river is about Standing Rock Tribe, but on the actual Ochete-Sacoan land, that is tribal, that is treaty lands that are unceded to families of the signatories of that treaty, not just the Hunkapapa, not just Standing Rock. Mm-hmm. And my understanding is that Hunkapapa are one of the smallest bands of the Sioux Nation, and the way the horn worked traditionally was the Ogallala were the big brother, and in a situation like this, the big brother is supposed to have a lot of say so and protect the rest. And regardless of whether they want to get back to the traditional form of the horn, the fact is that the water is going to all the Sioux Nation and Yankton, Ogallala, whoever, and so everybody has a stake as far as that goes. But even more so, the signatory families of the treaty have more of a say so than anyone. And I think a lot of misinformation was given that this was just about Standing Rock from the word go, and so that led a lot of people to donate funds strictly towards the tribe, and when really you're standing with the entire Sioux Nation, who's downstream, and the Cheyenne River, people. There's a lot of people involved here, and so somebody. The chairman took the reins at some point, and a lot of from my experience, I immediately saw that there was an attempt to take all the non-Indians that were there who were misinformed about how this is all working, and make them kind of take advantage of them and their search for this, a lot of non-native, so many non-natives, especially young hippie kids and whatnot, that are wanting to be environmentalists or wanting to find some sort of spirituality. They were easily grabbed and misled by those that really knew what the heck was going on into this false notion that there was some sort of secret spiritual council of elders that needed to guide them, and in this prayer, and so they were really kind of huddled into the dome every day, and held back from not only a lot of the truth, but also into this pseudo spiritual fervor that they got themselves in, where everybody's singing Kumbaya instead of actually doing actions. And then those actions were repressed. You know, they had repressed those actions. And I question why that would actually be the case. But I also know that, you know, when you're dealing with BIA and IRA governments, you know, the feds are going to do whatever they can, and money is always when you get fame and money involved, corruption is always happening. And whether it was you know, who got bought out, I don't know, but I do know, and I won't say any names again, but a lot of people were donated lots and lots and lots of money, and that money did not get allocated towards stopping the pipeline. It went to, you know, people's coffers. And you know, when we talk about this thing, we also never began to talk about that the federal government was involved in this just as much as these racist pigs in North Dakota were.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But, you know, because from my research that I've been doing since 2007, the federal government and the U.S. military have technology that's, you know, some people call it remote sensing. You can call it hyperthermal spectral imaging. They can fly over with a plane and look into the earth and quantify and specify and colorize every single mineral within inches of the earth and within several thousand feet down. And they have the ability to know where everything is. So that means it doesn't matter whether it's got atomic weights as uranium and rare earths, or whether it's gold or gas or oil or coal. They know where it all is now. Mm-hmm. And they also know that in Indian country, they're going to have to set legal precedents eventually to retain all of it. And so they've flown it all over. They know where it's at, and they also know that in Indian country, native lands sit, whether they're treaty lands or like this unceded land, or whether they're tribally owned lands, that they sit on 60%, around 60% of the United States subsurface minerals. And they don't give a shit about treaty rights, and they never have.
Or mineral
so,
rights.
You know,
mineral
rights.
Mm-hmm.
And so, you know, they're doing everything they can. As you can see, Trump's appointed group that he's got out now, they're going to do everything they can to attack native sovereignty and native lands. And so by letting this happen and pretending that the state government and the state North Dakota's sheriff's departments and stuff were the, you know, perpetrators in this deal, they can sit back and let them do it. But I know for a fact that I myself and others were followed by, I was followed by U.S. government vehicles with tactical geared, you know, guys dressed up in tactical geared, following me,
right,
in a white van. So we also know that the guys in the masks that, you know, pointed fingers and told the cops what to do and arrest Red Fawn, and all those guys are unidentifiable, and they're fully in tactical gear and federal uniform. And so, you know, I'm not really speculating here. I'm just going off of my observations, and then what I've studied in the past is that, you know, the federal government is out to dissolve native treaty rights, mineral rights, land rights, and sovereignty. And this is a perfect window of opportunity for them to let this happen, let it seem like the state of North Dakota and all their cops are the henchmen for this and the perpetrators in it, but really they sit back and, you know, coach it all, and then they can set precedent in the future, and you know, in black and white on paper, and slowly strip away more sovereignty, more Indian land rights, more mineral rights.
Right. Because, we have a situation, this has always been government policy to end Native America. That's U.S.
Absolutely.
government policy. So we have the organizing principle of the federal government is bureaucracy, and bureaucracy is amoral. Bureaucracy has no morals, and that's how bureaucracy can steamroll over life for profit in its marriage to corporations. And so tribal governments are not true sovereign governments because they're set up like little mirrors of the larger federal government. So they act in the same way. Their organizing principle is bureaucracy, just like the federal government. And the organizing principle is not this authentic organizing principle that we once had in Indian country.
Not at all, and that can fool a lot of people within the tribe itself, and by thinking that this is in our best interest, when really it's just a bunch of BIA bootlickers and butt kissers. And when we talk about these action meetings, for example, these daily action meetings and keeping everybody in the dome and stopping actions, people had claimed up and down, no, we didn't make any deals. We haven't made any deals. We haven't talked to the sheriff's department. But yet we know from the videos, and who's to say that we can't trust anything that DAPL said or, the sheriff says, but they constantly tell the water protectors that are going to the blockade on the bridge, you're breaking the deal. You're violating the agreement. And they said, the agreement with who? And then, the sheriff calls back and says, the agreement with the elders on the bullhorn. So, and who are the elders? Well, the elders really with the young white kids and people that were there to help protect the water that don't know a damn thing about Indian law. Those are the tribal council and the leaders. And so, I don't care what the chairman said. He said that there was no agreements made or whatever. But as soon as that Sunday night happened at the bridge where that poor girl got her arm blown off, as soon as that happened, there was something that stopped everybody from going out there and doing a damn thing. And when all these veterans came, they pulled them in and they stopped them too. And I've seen it over and over and over again, and many of my friends that have been in the AA movement when their parents were there, they saw the same thing happen. So, it's not a conspiracy theory to think that the federal government came in and had a talk with these so-called leaders and said, hey, you need to rein in this horse or we're going to do something ourselves. And the incentive could have very well been to get paid off. Well, not to mention the incentive of keeping all of the donations that were stashed in the warehouse of all the equipment, as well as the $3.2 million that they decided to keep anyway. So it's opportunists, it's disaster capitalism, and I don't.
It's failure by design.
Right. I don't exactly, and that's capitalism, and that can bring us to this whole idea of divestment too, because I agree that we need to get out there and divest, but when you say we need to divest and pull our money out of the bank, what many people don't keep in mind is that those that live in Greenwich, Connecticut, and all the Wall Streeters and all the billionaires class, it's really not going to affect very much when the common man pulls his money out of the bank, or the common woman. It just doesn't, because you're dealing with a class of people and an institution that is so much about inequality in the first place that it really doesn't matter how many regular citizens or tribal citizens pull out their funds. it doesn't affect them hardly at all, and because you have to see the bigger picture of who actually has the stocks and who actually has the who are the real beneficiaries in this economy, and those are the ones that are the billionaire class and the millionaires, and that's a drop in the bucket compared to what they actually have going in the institution itself. And and when we say divest, that's good and all, but we're also sort of putting a little bit of faith in capitalism that it's going to turn itself around just because we point our money in a different direction. And capitalism and the way the United States government works is it's all about extraction. It may get to reinvent itself and call itself renewable energy, but you've still got tons of copper that need to be mined and extracted from somewhere to put those copper lines in those wind turbines. You've still got tons of telluranium that are going to have to be mined and extracted and water poisoned to get to it to put in solar panels. And so now we have, where we can just greenwash it and act like divestment is going to help, and Shell's all of a sudden going to become a solar company. No, you've still got capitalism, you've still got extraction, you've still got water being poisoned, and you've still got the people fooled. New answer. And unfortunately, I know I sound like a doom and gloom and pretty negative about it, but it's just the basic facts. I mean, I've built wind turbines in the industry. I know how much steel and how much copper and how much neodymium goes in the magnets inside the generators. And these are rare earth minerals that, you'd have to dig up an entire 3 blocks to get a small truckload. And
okay. Well,
the earth is still going to be destroyed by capitalism.
Right. Okay, so we're going to get back to that. It's good to actually get this stuff out, because eventually we're going to get to what are the best steps that that we can take then, knowing these things that we know, the problems.
Right.
And then what I want to do right now is I want to add somebody else to the call who's on the ground in North Dakota.
Yeah.
Okay.
Awesome.
And he live streamed the meeting, so we're gonna just get his opinion about everything as well. But we will get back to this, and we do have to, acknowledge these things that you're talking about. It's important.
Hello?
Nicholas, you're on the air. This is Kira. Welcome to the bridge.
Hey, what's up, Kira?
Hey, I'm here with BeeBop. He's joined me. Have you been?
What's up, BeeBop?
Hey, Nicholas.
Huh?
Have you been listening, or are you coming in new?
Now coming in new. I just I only got like 9% battery life left, and it's kind of rough out here.
That is the reality of living out there. So tell us quickly then where you guys have to move to. You're in what used to be Ocheti Shakoi, but where are you going?
I'm not going anywhere just yet, because fucking
try not to say that, because it's the FCC.
Like,
try not to F.
My bad.
F-bomb. That's cool.
My bad.
Go ahead.
My bad.
All right, go ahead.
I'm not moving anywhere just yet, because nobody else is going anywhere from what I see. And where we're moving to, I heard across the road from Ocheti and the hills on Rosebud, but nobody knows.
Okay, so they didn't tell you at the meeting where they want you to go to? Or they just want you to leave, right? Just leave completely.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So it's
I don't know exactly where.
It's the other holdouts that are like, we're staying and we'll find a safer place that isn't going to flood. Is that, am I right in my assumption there?
Something like that.
Okay. Before your battery runs out, is there anything that you want to tell us that's going on that we might not know about?
Oh yeah, DAPL's still drilling, or they're still working. Well, nobody knows because we can't even get up to the drill pad with the police's militarized. There's soldiers up there, with ARs and just ready to shoot people and whatnot, and so it's real difficult to get up there, and we don't have the numbers to get up there. So what I'm doing, I'm working on a march to gather 50,000 people to march up to the drill pad by Valentine's Day. It's called the March of Love and Peace, and you could look it up on Facebook. My name is Jesus Wagner, and excuse me, I'm sorry, but
don't forget to bring the tacos.
Yeah, for sure.
It's the March of Love and Peace and tacos.
Right.
All right, cool. Well, everybody will look that up, and 50,000 people is going to be that would be a lot. I wish you the best with that one.
Thank you. Yeah, it's so far it's going all right. A lot of people are spreading the word, and just talked to the dude with the drone, and I mean, if it's all in the creator's hands. Like if it works out, if not, whatever.
Okay. All right. Anything else you want to tell us?
Thanks for holding it down.
Yeah, thank you so much. It is like -10 last I heard in those parts.
Yeah, it's pretty cold right now. It's you can't take your gloves off for more than a minute. My hands are pretty cold right now, but it's all good. We're warriors.
That's right. That's right.
I mean,
so what do you guys need?
For real.
And how
what do
can
we need?
help
We
you?
need people. We need people to get out here to stop the pipeline.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we can't stop the pipeline with 1,000 people. We need a mass amount of people to join us and to stop the pipeline. If we don't stop this pipeline, then everybody's going to be drinking oil. We're all going to die. So everybody needs to wake up. This ain't a joke. This is a life and death situation. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So
This is real.
So for those who have been hearing that it's over and that people are leaving, that's not the case. Like you can still show up, and there'll be places that you can camp out with everybody else.
Yeah, I mean,
It's never been over.
Right, it's never been over. We all work together here as a community. If someone needs a spot to stay, then they'll find a spot to. We'll help them find them a spot to stay. But it's just it's sad because if people believe the hype, and it's very frustrating. I don't know if you could tell in the tone of my voice it's frustrating. It's frustrating that the pipeline is still being built. That's all.
Yeah. The theater around that, and the narrative control that went into that. Before you joined us, me and BeeBop were talking about how those who were supposed to be, the main leaders of the movement were. Oh, there he goes. He just ran out. Well, at least we got him there.
Yeah, well,
for a little bit.
Well, we're talking about the different people that were involved in that. You had your people on top, and then you had the people actually in camp being peacefully. Using words like agitator and
right,
and using words like instigator, and I'm a prayer person. I've been praying all my life from the beginning. I attend ceremonies, and I go to sweats. I go to NAC meetings. I've Sundance. I know what prayer is, and it's, you know, I kept trying to tell some of these white hippies out there that, like, look, man, there's, in traditional ways, there's not this sense of duality. You don't have this, you know, this colonial construct of this duality of, oh, just keep everything peaceful when you're in battle with a freaking tyrant. You know, when the colonists are knowingly poisoning your grandkids' water, you don't sit back and say, I'm going to pray for them. And you know, and I really got tired of that. I got so tired of, you know, me and my boy would walk into the dome and hear everybody talking in this like kumbaya, new age sort of ideals. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, and my brothers are concerned, you know, especially over in High Star camp, you know, the actual treaty camps, the actual families that are invested into this land because of their grandparents, or their great grandparents signing it, is that, you know, warriors are prayed for when they go out to battle, and they can continue to pray while they're in battle. But you don't sit there and fold your hands and, you know, do like, you know, just light yourself on fire. That's not going to do your grandkids or the water or the earth any good. And, you know, and what the proposals are, as opposed to just sitting back and praying that, you know, the spiritual powers out there are going to engulf our enemies in flames or something. It's just not going to happen. You know, you have to be active. And as far as I'm concerned, when we put together a ceremony, whether it be Sundance or Native American Church, it takes a lot of work. You have to get the food ready. You have to go get the poles. You have to set the teepee up. You have to put the arbor up. It takes a lot of preparation and a lot of action. And that action is the prayer. So, you know, this is some of the misleading narrative and ideas that a lot of people that aren't used to being around Indian country were given, that, oh, we're just keeping it peaceful by sitting here in the dome and praying that all the problems go away. Well, you know what? Since I've been a little boy, I have watched species disappear. I have watched creeks dry up or be poisoned. I constantly watch that. And yeah, I'm praying about it, but at the same time, you got to do something about it. Because in the end, and, you know, I know people were saying, oh, you don't need to cuss at them. You don't need to yell. We need to keep it peaceful. In the end, our children aren't going to question us on how peaceful we kept it, or how we didn't cuss, or how we maintained our so-called moral integrity. They're going to question what the hell we did to stop the desecration of sacred sites and the destruction of water in our Mother Earth for their sake. That's what they're going to ask. That's what they're going to be concerned about when they're drinking a cup full of oil or paying, you know, $30 damn for a pint of water.
Right.
In the future.
Right.
You know, so, and I totally I feel Jesus on this one, or, you know, it pisses me the frack off. You know, it really does. It really does. It you know, and that's and I've been fighting this fight for a long time. I've been fighting for treaty lands that were embezzled on over in Colorado. They're educational treaty lands. I wanted to help create sustainable economic development for tribes through traditional foods and buffalo programs, and turned out and found out that this land that actually belonged to Native people through educational treaty rights, it was being embezzled on for ages. And, you know, and then it got deeper and deeper and deeper, and then it involved the Pentagon and whatnot. So, you know, after a while, and I even lost my college career fighting it, because the school board, you know, and the administration kicked me out of college. So I I've been fighting this long enough to know that we're up against some really serious, powerful people, not just some asshole in a corporation that's sitting back wanting to try to make millions. We're fighting the very thing that the people began fighting as soon as the arrival of that in 1492. And and if we don't sit here and realize that the United States government helped slaughter the buffalo and the people on behalf of the railroads and the coal mining and everything else, and that Apache children and many other tribal children were pulled out of the mountains and placed into prisons that they tried to call reform schools or boarding schools, in order to keep those kids from attacking miners, in order to protect, this isn't new. They've been protecting the miners and the railroads and the forestry, lumber and timber mining. They've been protecting all of that shit for a real long time. And this is no different. But except this time, they just have a lot more money and a lot more military force. And, I don't have the answers. But what I do know is, just like Nicholas said earlier, is that this is nothing to mess with. This is, you got to be serious about this. And this brings me back to the divestment thing. That's great if you're in the system, you got a job, you want to keep your job, you're living in the suburbs or whatever, you want to keep your lights on. I'm not talking about those people. Go ahead and divest. I'm talking about the real warriors that want to get up and actually create a movement that's a revolution to put a stop to it. And you're not going to just do that by pulling your money out of a bank in a system that never worked to begin with, based on genocide.
Okay.
We can't think that capitalism is going to fix this.
Right. So let's look a little more deeper into the, how the narrative on the side of water protectors was controlled to get us to look at things that maybe aren't very helpful to us. So the first thing that you were talking about earlier was that we identified, was that we're never going to fix anything with the federal government. They're never going to partner with Indian country to fix things. It's
Absolutely not.
It's not what they do. And so that's the biggest thing that I think this whole event around Standing Rock gave people the impression that especially if you bought into the win and everything, the theatrical so-called win, when they're still building the pipeline.
Or if you bought into the, why isn't Obama doing something?
Right.
I heard that,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I went over there and did a PR campaign years ago so that it just go things out. He's not going to, I don't care whether you're Democrat or Republican, neither side on the United States government is on the side of indigenous people.
Right.
That's why they never signed anything to help indigenous peoples in the UN and the United Nations Declaration of Indigenous People. That's why they've been against it from forever.
Mm-hmm. 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 Right. So that's the biggest narrative, and that that indigenous resistance is tied to this partnership that we're supposed to have with the federal government, right?
Yeah, that's a joke. It's like there's no partnership. I mean, that is not self-determination.
Right. And so it's there to cover up that there really is no true sovereignty. It's paper sovereignty. It's everything has to go through the federal government. So that's why these tribes and the tribal leaders are always put in an impossible position. Whatever choice that they make daily is damned if you do, damned if you don't. Because the failure is by design.
Yeah, you just have to think about the definition or the meaning behind the words domestic dependent. Mm-hmm. I mean, think about it. It sounds like a housewife who's chained to the kitchen. You know, it sounds very abusive from the beginning when you hear it. Domestic dependent.
Right.
You know, it sounds like the whole Christianity's idea of the submissive wife or female. You know, and it's patriarchy. You know, it's white Eurocentric colonial patriarchy, and it's insane, and it doesn't work, and it's not self-determining whatsoever.
Right. So, and then you layer on top of that the fact that tribal governments are set up to mirror the insanity and of the federal government. So you on top of that, you have all these centuries of Indian law that keep natives in poverty by totally controlling the land. The other narrative out there is that natives have control of their Indian land. That's a false narrative as well.
That's huge.
Yeah.
This brings us to, okay, how do we get past the idea of you know, it doesn't just stop at treaty rights and indigenous rights. It even goes so far back to say, okay, well, how do you do this? Well, in an international court of law, it would have to be international. It would have to be within the international spectrum, and it would have to consist of inherent rights. Every nation has its right of self-determination, and it is an inherent right that we have clean water. It is an inherent right that sacred sites be protected. These are inherent rights that every nation really has, but we can't just stop at, okay, what does the treaty laws say, and we stop there. What is the Article 6 say, and then we just, in the Constitution, the treaties are the supreme law of the land, and we just stop there. We have to take it even further on the international stage, because otherwise we're not going to codify those rights. We have to go way further than just at the boundaries in which they give us. We have to take it all the way and say self-determination is an inherent right. And so if there's any hope at all within, you know, the international courts and you know, human rights, which honestly I you know, my Indian law treaty rights law brother believes in and thinks that it's still possible, and it'll take a lot of work, but you know, we may be able to go through that, but we have to come up with the scope of these inherent rights, not just, you know, treaty rights written by, you know, the very treaty breakers themselves. But we can't. But me, where I'm at and where I understand other people are that don't have, you know, Indian law degrees and that don't understand black letter law, is that there also has to be a battle. And I don't want to say that it has to be violent, but I mean, at some point we have to realize that if our kids have to drink poison water and their lands are desecrated, that's violence itself.
Right.
And you know, the foreign, you know, enemies, foreign or domestic, and so I'm getting really on a touchy subject here.
Right.
But I feel like, you know, there really has to be sacrifices made to really pull those rights back, not just try to codify them in an international court, you know. Right. And it's a very, you know, because what all they're going to do is call us eco-terrorists now,
right.
Or, you know, terrorists.
Right.
But that's we're probably on a terrorist watch list for being there already.
Right.
You know.
Right. When it's terrorism to poison your water and
Exactly.
the land, and it's violence, and it is not by definition violence to protect yourself and your family. That's
Not, absolutely not, or your
yeah.
homeland. And
Right.
I'm in Oklahoma, and there is poisoned water everywhere here. You know, and there's where white leasees are leasing Indian allotment land from through the BIA program, and spraying all kinds of agrochemicals and nitrates on the land. It goes into the creeks, it goes into the wells, and then on top of that, the fracking that's going on here.
So you not only get to look forward to tornadoes, but earthquakes as well in Oklahoma now.
It never existed.
Right. As a direct result.
And we might as well bring up the fact that this is also man-made climate change. So it's an atomic bomb.
Mm-hmm.
We're facing the first mass extinction that's man-made ever. And the irony is that we're using the very bones and fossil fuel dug up from the last extinction.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah.
we're digging up death in order to create our own death. And we have to get off the juice. And there's the Hopi prophecies say so. The petroglyphs and Thomas Banyaka, the Hopi medicine man, they talked about this, about how the petroglyphs showed the older brother walking on Earth, and then all of a sudden there's this split where there's this younger brother that's now up in the sky, and he's captured lightning, and he's running with this lightning. And the Hopis say that until that younger brother lets go of that lightning that he's stolen and comes back down to the earth with the older brother, that until that happens, we are facing a dangerous and destructive spirit ahead, where great winds, great mass heat, climate change, oceans rising, storms, severe floods, severe drought, severe winter. All of those things are warning us that we're not following the laws of Mother Earth and our Creator.
Right.
And it's a lot for people. We're talking through these lightning boxes right now, and until we realize that our dependence on energy, it's not about converting over to solar or wind. I'm sorry, guys. I work in those industries. I know what kind of extraction takes place in order to get those solar panels and those wind turbines. I worked in them. I've seen it, and it's not the answer. The true answer is that, unfortunately, we have to let go of fossil fuel and that, because this lightning that we've captured is going to kill us. And people will argue with me and say, well, that's just not feasible, it's not realistic. But an alcoholic or a drug addict will argue the same argument.
Right.
It's not all peachy and fluffy pillow to lay your head on. And
yeah, it's not. There's
we have to go old school again.
Mm-hmm.
We have to, and this is where food sovereignty comes in.
Right.
The key to all of this is letting go of all of that, and on the soil where you're at, sequestering that carbon back and building that soil back to its healthy state, and getting away from the desertification that our fossil fuel lifestyles have created anyway. We have desertified the planet, and we need to actually sequester the carbon back in, rebuild the soil, and plant seed. And that's truly what it comes down to, is, are we going to be stewards Are we going to plant trees and plant seeds and build soil and let the earth do her job, or are we going to keep interfering and acting like we know better?
Okay, stick around. Mute your mic for a few minutes. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back for the second hour.
Awesome. Thanks.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the second hour of The Bridge with Kira. It is the 7th of January, 2017, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, and I'm here with BeeBop, the water protector who everybody is saying is on a roll. Welcome back to The Bridge.
Thanks, Kira.
So we're going to add another person to this. Did you want to finish the thought that you were on about, did you want to talk about food sovereignty a little more before I add him, though? There's another person who wanted to join the conversation.
Well, I mean, it's pretty, it's pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. We have to fight for Mother Earth, and then at the same time we're fighting and making the decisions that need to be made and fighting these battles against the entities that are destroying her. We also need to get out there and fix our soil and get rid of the desertification and plant the seeds and plant the trees so Mother Earth can do her job, and that we've held her back from doing through, and destroyed areas in our own communities. We need to fix our health in our own communities, and we have to cultivate our own traditional foods and the foods out of our bioregions to do that. So
right.
Right. It's pretty simple.
It's very simple, but at the same time, it looks complicated because it affects us in so many different ways. So, for myself, I spent the majority of my life very ill with autoimmune disease because I wasn't aware of how deeply damaging eating wheat was to me. And I went to doctor after doctor, and they told me I had fibromyalgia. They told me about the arthritis, but they never caught the celiac. Their whole treatment plan was to suppress my symptoms. And so that's happening on a mass scale. Even the medical community is involved, or the medical corporate establishment is involved in keeping us sick so that we don't have the energy that it takes to heal our Mother Earth and to work with her again, to work in balance, to create our own food sovereignty again. So
right. We do get stuck in a rock and a hard space. I've been a natural farmer and a traditional cropping. I've practiced traditional cropping methods and traditional food production, and it's hard to try to keep a 9-to-5 job and still take care of your livestock and your seeds and your plants. Mm-hmm. So unfortunately, we also have to make decisions that aren't easy. But in the long run, when it comes to a living planet and our grandchildren, and we have to make the right decision. And these colonization gets in the way of many ways, but we can decolonize, and we have to be aggressive about it, or our kids are going to suffer.
Right. So there really is no true sovereignty without food sovereignty. There's no true sovereignty without energy sovereignty, without, so there's dependency on both those two fronts there. Energy for ourselves in the nutrition that we take in, and energy for the modern conveniences that we've become accustomed to. So it sounds like where you're going is that we're going to have to, a large portion of us are going to have to give up modern conveniences as well, in order to make things work for on the long term.
Yeah, and we've got to protect the land to do that. You know, we've got to take back Indian lands to do that. We've got to we've got to tell we've got to tell tribal councils to quit investing in oil and gas and start investing in the things that really are truly matter. And whatever tribe you are, and even non-Indians themselves, this is the answer, and decolonization.
And we're all colonized, not just Native people. We're all colonized, and
right.
Yeah. And so when you're talking about these white hippie kids that come to Standing Rock, they're actually responding to something quite deep in all human beings, which is like, we all remember a time in our own people's existence when we were living as an indigenous people. The history of the world is the history of psychopathic regimes taking over indigenous people and their land. That's the history of the world.
I mean, we have that genetic memory inside of us, like John Trudell said.
Yeah.
We have the genetic memory to know that we are children of the earth, and every step of the way, the colonizers are trying to erase it, but we can't be passive anymore. We can't look to New Age books or religion or governments or organizations or nonprofit NGOs. We have to look at it into our communities, and whether they're tribal communities or whether they're native communities, and we have to. It takes a lot, I mean, land ownership, the colonial concept of owning land is something that we're really that's a huge hurdle, and I don't know what the answers are, but me personally and a lot of people that I love and care about we're being marginalized by capitalism and colonialism and poverty, and we're sick of it.
And the poverty itself is its own form of violence, which again puts us in damned if you do, damned if you don't situations. And that's the biggest clue for me, that the actual system itself is a psychopathic entity. It acts like a psychopathic entity because it's abusive. It's abusive to everybody who isn't at the top. That's why I talk about the psychopaths in charge, because it's not enough for them to have most of everything. They want it all. Right. So, yeah.
When you can rebuild the soil and use natural farming methods and traditional cropping methods, when you actually take the effort to learn how to plant trees and reforest the earth from what we've cut down and destroyed with till farming releases more carbon than the actual vehicles we drive do out of the ground. And so when we can revitalize and regenerate these old traditional indigenous cropping methods and actually create food forests again, there's a good chance that we're going to be all right, and we won't be in poverty.
Right.
But we've got to learn how to do that together, and we've got to understand what it means to reactivate the microbes and the fungi within the soil, and to help the earth heal again, so that we can eat right, and so that we can create a food-based economy instead of an economy based on destruction and industrialism and capitalism and colonialism.
Dang, I like the way you think. Let's add Daniel to this conversation, who another water protector who's been listening to the conversation.
Hello.
Hi, Daniel. Welcome to the bridge. You're on the air.
Hi, Kira. How you doing?
Good. Meet BeeBop.
Hi, BeeBop.
Hi, Daniel.
So you are also are you a non-native ally or
That's right.
Okay. So what was it about your about you that brought you to Standing Rock, and now that you're done with your time there, where are you at with all of this?
Well, I come from the the other end of the spectrum. I come from Massachusetts, so there's very little awareness of what's going on with Native people in my area, and growing up the colonized education, it's stuff I wasn't even aware of until I'm an adult. I'm 32, and I'm just kind of now getting hip to it. I mean, I've kind of known my whole life about it, but the real truth of what's gone on and all the lies and manipulation of history, through a lot of the work that I've done to awaken my own self to the truth of our reality has uncovered that. So I started seeing the videos and the live streams and stuff like that, and a lot of dots, and my life started getting connected with my spirituality and my values and all that stuff. Like something what you said before about the white hippie kids, I kind of fall into that category to some degree, because that was a big part of it for me. But so many things brought it all together.
And how do you feel like it's changed you, being there and the reality of?
Well, I'll tell you what's very personal. It affirms so many things that I already suspected. Even though I grew up, colonized and white, my family and especially my people who raised me were, the kind of people you'd probably call conspiracy theorists or whatever, and anti-establishment thinkers. So, that's always been kind of my upbringing, and so being there and seeing it was like seeing the truth, affirming a lot of things that I suspected about, our government and, our culture, and the reflection of those two worldviews that, it's culminated in this event, in such a palpable way for so many people, including me.
So, do you have any connection to the Native people in your area, the Native groups in your area, now that you're back, or did you before you left?
I didn't before, and I still don't. And that's one of the biggest struggles that I can see for our area here is that there's just so little left of the traditional Native culture in this area, and it's just hard. I've done some reaching out and trying to plug in here and there, and there are people trying to do it, but I won't speak about anything in particular, but I just haven't found anything that feels like it has any meat to it, like this did. Like this was clearly a situation where the people who were fighting against their oppressors, it was clear, like Lakota people, Lakota lands,
Yeah.
Here it's a lot less clear.
Oh yeah.
That's what I was looking at. So.
Well, you're in New England. I'm in Virginia. This is the reality of first contact area.
Right.
It is all sort of messed up. So this kind of brings me to where I've been thinking like the past few days is that the new chapter of this movement. This movement isn't just Standing Rock, and I think a lot of people who maybe just came into it or maybe are younger thought like Standing Rock itself is its own movement, but Standing Rock is just a chapter in a very long movement of indigenous resistance. It's just one chapter. So for, what we need to do and what me and BeeBop has been talking about this whole time, the next chapter needs to be it's all Indian land. And so we need to set up a network of camps all over this country to fight pipelines everywhere, because they are everywhere. And so anybody who's willing to put themselves on the line to protect water, wherever they're called, it might not be might not be a reservation. It might be somewhere else where we don't have the bureaucracy of reservation or tribal government to deal with.
Yeah. Well, interesting thing about that is there was a project here, like Kinder Morgan project, Northeast Direct, addition to, I guess, I can't remember the name of the bigger pipeline that it's attached to, but they were going to put it through our area here, and actually, one of the members of my family was actually a big part of the resistance, because it was going to go right through his land, and they beat it on paper, and seeing that, it was about a year or two before this happened, and seeing the contrast of what it takes to fight a pipeline in Western Massachusetts and what it takes to fight a pipeline in Cannonball, North Dakota.
Right. There's a big difference, so going back to you, BeeBop, about the bureaucracy of tribal government, one of those false narratives out there is that it being a government-to-government thing between the Lakota and the U.S. government actually simplifies things. No, it doesn't. It makes it much more complicated, because you have this alphabet soup of bullshit to wade through. Yeah.
You've got states' rights entities that don't recognize that relationship, and the states' rights entities and their interests take precedent within the federal government over Indian interests. And regardless of what Article 6 says, that treaty rights are the law of the land, we see that all of those treaties have been broken. So they're obviously not the law of the United States, even though they claim they are.
Right. And it's only when convenient. So
yeah, we've got the pipeline, the Trans-Pecos pipeline, the Comanche pipeline, and going through Big Bend, and all of those are just, this is a fine example. All of those pipelines over there in West Texas are destroying Comanche sacred sites. They're destroying Comanche burials and sacred sites and sacred land. You also have the fracking, the pipelines destroying the peyote gardens in South Texas, where we get our sacred medicines from, called peyote. And because it's states' rights, land, and territory, those federal obligations don't exist, and so they can plow right through all of those Comanche burial sites, all those Comanche sacred sites, plow right through our peyote gardens, where the last of our medicine for our sacred ceremonies grows, and the Freedom of Religion Act does not apply. The cultural protections that normally would be had only on Indian territories and in federal land does not apply. So what good are they?
Right, exactly. It's not worth the paper it's printed on. It's just, it's another false narrative that this piece of paper is going to save you. It's not. Or this, latest federal decision is going to save you. It's not. It's just the only time the federal government can do the right thing is even capable of doing the right thing is when they are forced to. They don't do the right thing out of the way that they're built. That's the other huge false narrative here, right? That we have this glorious document called the Constitution that makes our federal government, do the right thing all the time. Nope.
Yeah. It's like religion. Nationalism and statism is the the new, it's a religion. It's putting our faith and our hopes and our so-called quote unquote beliefs into something instead of actually getting off our asses and doing it ourselves and making sure it happens.
Right. And there's always a bunch of hurdles in the way, and that's the name of the game. With the federal government, it's the time game. Well, we'll have to schedule that federal hearing for this day, and then that one. And meanwhile, all life is being destroyed on the planet. While we're scheduling federal reviews.
And we've got to take way more action than what we're doing, sitting around praying. I'm sorry. I mean, the Bundys got to sit over there in Utah, and nobody even knew what the hell they were fighting for or bringing guns to federal land for. They were able to do that, destroy a federal office, destroy sacred sites, and sacred sites, occupy a federal base with armed weapons, and then get away with it. But
one guy was killed.
He was killed because he, drew on somebody, and they shot him. But we've got the situation where people of color or indigenous people rise up and want to do something peacefully. All of a sudden, we're getting blasted. We're getting beat down. So the continued colonial institutional racism is there within the system itself. People say, "Oh, our system's broke. Oh, the government broke." No, it never freaking worked to begin with, based on the fact that it got off a genocide. It was never broke. It's a genocidal maniac system.
It's by design, exactly. Never broken. It's by design. That is definitely true. And what the commitment to nonviolence, and what the veil that it lifted was that Nazis can roll up to a group of natives praying, call it a riot, and then attack them.
Yeah.
That people would, the average person would not believe that was possible in America unless they saw it for themselves on a live stream. So that's a big veil that got lifted there. And
to be honest with you, to be straight up honest here, I'm going to have a lot of people disagree with me, but the idea of nonviolence in a situation where you're just protecting yourself and you are supposed to be expected to be nonviolent, that's colonial oppression in itself. The whole idea of the nonviolence movement is a white privilege movement, and it proves that the courts proved that when a lot of the water protectors that were white were getting misdemeanors, when a lot of our Native brothers and sisters were getting felonies tacked on for doing the same thing. So, to all my brothers and sisters out there hollering for non-violent action, think about what you're really saying, because you might be giving power to a very colonial idea to begin with.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was important at this point to make that commitment. But at the same time...
I agree, but we see the result.
Right. We see the result, and now what's next, right? So we got what we needed out of that, and we won the PR war. I mean, I don't care what anyone says, we won the PR war. People saw that. They saw water cannons in 20-degree weather, and we won the PR war. Because now Morton County sheriffs are Nazis forevermore.
And again, it was all put on the Morton County sheriffs.
Right.
Exactly what the federal government wanted to do.
Right. So yeah. No, your point is very well taken. So when we're talking about food sovereignty, energy sovereignty, I think non-compliance is really the best option. We just don't comply with their life-destroying policies.
It takes a lot of commitment, and I don't. It takes I just got back from the East Coast where, what's our relative's name here on the line with us?
Daniel.
Okay, I just got back from the East Coast in Greenwich, Connecticut, where all the hedge funders live, where all the white privileged Wall Streeters live, and it's the first time I was ever on the East Coast, so it blew my mind to see this urban city living, and they've got a really hell of a big challenge ahead when it comes to facing what we're talking about. It's going to be a huge. Urban gardens are great, but holy smoke, we've built this massive fossil fuel economy and these metroplexes
too big to fail, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other. Here's the other the false narrative out there is like, okay, we want a sustainable existence. Okay, that's reasonable, right? But when it gets into the political sphere, all these initiatives that talk sustainability, they're actually talking about controlling the population instead of actual sustainability. And so, when they give us these fantasies about these urban environments where we're still like close to nature and yet we have our modern conveniences at the same time. All this is about a fantasy to bring you into the towns and into the cities where you're more controlled. So anybody who chooses to live off the grid or out in the woods, pays the penalty for that. So the number one penalty is you when you live in the woods, you live on the other side of the digital divide. That's why I'm doing the show from my truck. And so basically most of Native America lives on the other side of the digital divide. The
EPA is talking about right now how they want to keep people from burning firewood. So all of a sudden firewood is a problem for climate change in Alaska instead of the actual oil pads and oil drills that are chewing up Alaska.
Mm-hmm. And it's always these policies where it's the average person that's going to pay this outrageous tax so that we can be sustainable, instead of the corporations being held responsible, for their destruction. It's on us, and then the corporations come back and say, oh, well, if you make us pay for this, then our prices are going to be high. Well, screw you. We don't need you. We're going to grow our own food. We're going to live without your modern convenience if we have to, because that's where it comes down to non-compliance, and that our only true power is really at the local level. So in terms of our ability to force the decision makers to do the right thing. So that's it. That goes back to what I was saying before, that this idea that the federal government can fix things. The federal government is just to screw things up.
And I really think that until we take care of indigenous people, until we take care of and I don't mean take care of them like some paternalistic thing.
Right.
I mean right the wrong. I mean until white Americans and the white powered structure, it's total white powered Nazi power structure anyway. And until governments like Canada and the United States start doing the right thing towards indigenous people and giving their lands back and getting the corporations off of their lands, quit poisoning their water, until there's actually real allies for indigenous people, and until indigenous people come first, I don't think that there's going to be any solution.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, because, you're really putting the earth first.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you're righting the wrong of colonialism the best that you can, however you can do that.
Right.
And I'm non-native and native, and you know, I've been going through this all my life, and I know that the only answer is through indigenous, because when you have true indigenous rights, when you have true indigenous sovereignty, true indigenous self-determination, then we can talk about, you know, civil rights, and then we can talk about the First Amendment. But, you know, it's just like I kept telling people over in camp. These court arguments about they're breaking our civil rights and they're breaking our First Amendment rights, and these are human rights, environmental rights, those aren't going to win. That's not going to stop the pipeline. The only thing that's going to stop the pipeline is upholding indigenous rights.
Right. So for those that are still there, holding it down, they still need our support. They still need us to be paying attention, because this is really a critical time. This is a time where, you know, there's a lot of dissension, there's a lot of confusion, there's a lot of disappointment. You know, people are leaving. There's still a lot of people there, and so we should keep paying attention to that. But we also should be paying attention to home, and we should be setting up this system of interconnected camps where we're fighting the pipeline, where the pipeline's all over Turtle Island.
Absolutely. I mean, on the East Coast, they're in Connecticut, they're New York and Long Island. You know, on the West Coast, you know, in Texas, and then the one going through the Sable Trail in Florida. You know, we don't want to see this turn into some kind of Occupy movement trend where it dies out and then we're back to square one.
Right.
We've got to keep the ball rolling, and you know, you know, white people, non-Indians need to turn to indigenous people, and they don't need to be turned into their BIA, RRA tribal councils. They need to be turned into their traditional people. And, and you know, whether that be in Canada or in the United States or in Ecuador, you know, we look up, you know, look what's going on. You know, the indigenous peoples are on the front lines of this, and they always have been.
Always have been.
And always have been, you know, from the railroads to 1492 to now, and the Chevron leak in Ecuador, you know, to the tar sands and to the dams and the traditional salmon runs. To indigenous people are always on the front lines and are always affected, and this is why I say until we become non-Indians become and non-Indian governments become a true ally of indigenous people, they're not going to learn a damn thing about how to get along with the earth.
Yep. It's a fundamental flaw in our thinking. Again, going back to the federal government's going to fix it, and that right. I think that's really tied to the NGOs involved. You know, because that's where the partnership is. It's like we have to ask the government. So the tribe has to ask the federal government. The NGOs have to pressure the federal government for these decisions. But, you know, when it comes down to it, we're actually going to get our action on the local level by banning fracking where we live. Because those are the people, those are the decision makers that we see every day in our daily lives.
Yeah.
So,
and I don't think money is going to solve it either. You know, you know, you see reparations for people in climate change and money, but
the money system is what created the problem, and you're not going to have a good money system. You're not going to have a good capitalism. There's no such thing.
Yeah. So,
Amen.
go ahead, Daniel.
No, I got nothing to add to that.
So you're saying that you don't have the solutions, and I don't either. But it seems like we're headed towards cooperation and non-compliance, and so unplugging where you can from the system that contributes to the destruction, and building up our own natural resources where you are, building the soil, planting food forests, food sovereignty, energy sovereignty, willingness to literally unplug from some of the modern conveniences of life, and these interconnected camps that I think are going to perhaps be one of the results of this latest chapter of the movement, and the disappointments where we are right now. So a lot of people are sitting back and they're going over their own sort of after action report. Look at this that happened. This is probably why. How can we avoid this in the future? And it's going to be maybe different. Every camp is going to have their different focus. Some might be focused on building leaders. Others might be focused on really teaching people how to, forage and create food sovereignty. So on all these different levels, you just have to be, working towards the solutions, even if you might not know what they all are.
I would suggest to, I always suggest to my non-Indian brothers and sisters, because there's a lot of things that they need to understand about Indian country, and I would really suggest to my non-Indian brothers and sisters is that you need to be allies to Native people, and you need to be quiet for a minute and listen, and don't come into the camps and say, oh, that's not vegan.
Yeah.
Yep. There's a lot of, I try to, if you really want to help the earth, they need to let the indigenous people lead it, and follow them and be quiet and sit back and understand why ask yourself the questions: why is diabetes and obesity and heart disease so prevalent in the Indian community? Why is a Native woman so much more likely to get raped than a white woman? Why is suicide rates so high? Why is the death rate so different? Why is such an inequality there? And then you've got to sit back and pay attention and go in there and help, but don't intrude. Don't think that you know something. And my uncles always told me, because every tribe is different. Yeah. It doesn't matter where you go, nephew. Go along with how they do it where you are. And that's one of the benefits of being in the Native American church, is many tribes are a part of it, and everybody's got their own ways. But for non-Indians, I really would suggest that you're not going there for your own personal gain, to get some kind of Indian parade in your mind, or some sort of idea, or spiritual uplift and nirvana going for your own self. You're going in there to help by being an ally, and sometimes making a sacrifice. And you've got to make a sacrifice. I really think that non-Indians
really needs to make an effort to make more of a sacrifice, because indigenous people have made enough sacrifices, and you know, it's going to help for the better in the long run, and non-Indians need to get some selflessness.
Yeah. And, you know, I would say for some that come, they've got that. And in fact, all the non-natives that I met when I was in camp were very, you know, they were there to learn and to participate and to, you know, help out and to go to action.
And we need more of it. We need more of it. You know,
totally
in our Indian communities and you know, I don't, like I said, I don't have all the answers, but I know that there's a lot that non-Indians need to learn about Indian people, and they need to learn that not from the books, not from New Age books, not from this idea they want to you know, glorify the mysticism and the parade. They need to learn from the people themselves and find out for themselves. Like, it'll help answer a lot of questions that have been unanswered since 1492. And in that moment, you know, we can begin to unify and heal. But I don't believe that these environmental nonprofits and NGOs are going to do anything for the earth unless they partner and have a lot of space for Indian leadership.
Yeah, agreed. So, you know, just going back to why is there so much diabetes in Indian country? Let's laugh at the notion for a moment here that the medical establishment puts out there that natives are genetically predisposed to diabetes. That's a bullshit narrative right there. You know, it comes down to natives eating buffalo and berries for thousands of years, or whatever the traditional diet is, depending on your tribe, you know, to fry bread. That you know, that massive transition, you know, from natural foods to processed garbage. You know, the whole thing about gluten-free is it's real. It's not a fad. I mean, it is for some people, but nobody native should be eating anything with wheat flour in it. I'm sorry. Grandma's fry bread is awesome, but the Indian taco that you're eating is killing you. That's just real.
Well, I mean, you know, indigenous people were organic before the word even existed. You know, it's another colonial concept, and you know, another way to capitalize on greenwashing. You know, is, you know, Whole Foods. You know, it's mostly rich white privilege that can afford to eat in these natural food stores.
Right. Yeah. So, the whole idea of any, you know, that's what the medical establishment does to all people of color. Oh, they're genetically predisposed to this and that, you know, which feeds into the idea that there are even different races to begin that with, which I don't think that even exists. We're just different cultures. That's it. You know, there's just one race, the human race. We're different colors and different cultures. That's it. There's the same genetic variance between people of the same so-called race and people of different so-called races. So even their own science proves that they just made up the whole science of race theory to begin with, to justify their own false hierarchy and their own privilege. So,
well, in camp, I was inspired. You know, I wasn't. I'm not inspired by the men. I'm not inspired by the patriarchal ego of competition and seeing who could talk the most and stand up and, you know, play tough. You know, for this movement, for me, women are it, and you know, women like Conahu and Sachi and and Linda Elk, and you know, the list goes on about what we can learn if we just shut up and pay attention to mothers and grandmothers and women, because this is, in the long run, it's about our mom to begin with.
Right.
And the women, you know, are to me are my leaders. You know, I would you know, the women are the ones that know, and their mothers, they have that love that many of us men will never even come to understand. They don't give birth, and I feel like this water and our mother, you know, as they are women, and the women are the mother, are the earth and the water, and you know, I think that a lot of this these things that happen in camp, the dividing, the fighting, the ego, the getting on cameras, and the greed. I didn't see our women leaders making those mistakes, and so I just wanted to give a shout out to the mothers and the women and the grandmothers, because without them we wouldn't be here. One, but two, you know, like women like Comanche and Linda Elk, and I'll never forget them. They've helped change my life in a way that I hope I can, as a man, you know, remain a little more humble and a little less angry and a little bit more with sensible and a little bit more selfless. Thanks to the fact that I listen to them, and they really inspire me. And you know, we have to say that about this movement, and how far and where it'll go from here, because the women are the true heroes, or if you want to call it that, whatever, you know, they're the real leaders.
Yeah, so not only do we need to make room for Indigenous leadership, but quite frankly, female Indigenous leadership and Two-Spirit Indigenous leadership. You know, that's big. That's something that came out. And maybe, you know, Conahu's prison visit lasted longer than she thought, so we'll hopefully get her on next week. But, you know, as a woman and, you know, somebody who is a mother, my advice to water protectors, water protectors give up a lot of comfort in order to protect the water. I would say that to give yourself permission to let the water give back to you and to heal you. So take time to be with water in ways that are comforting and nurturing and renewing to you. Because you fight for the water, and the water will fight back for you in your healing. So that would be my advice to water protectors is that you've earned the right to let that water fight back for you too, and heal you and renew you to go back onto the front lines. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Good. That's also coming from somebody who needs her bath every night, because it's part of my arthritis relief ritual, and so water is healing, water is life, water is everything, and it's worth the protection that so many people are now giving it, and the attention. And so, you know, where I live in the woods, I go down to the creek every morning and I pray, and I imagine that the health of that water spreading out as far as it can to all the other water, because water is also connected too. It's all connected. All the water on the planet is connected. So I don't know where I was going with that, but you know, that's what I'm moved to say at this point. to anybody who's, I wanted to ask you, Daniel, before the show ends here, like about going back to like regular society. What's that like for you?
Well, it's been very jarring. I guess it is, as I'm sure many people have said about their return homes. But I think for me, it's been as much of an affirmation of my like I was saying before, suspicions about the truths of our government and our reality here, society, etc. There's been a parallel. I don't know what you would call it, the opposite of an affirmation, just about being back here, and I've been struggling. I think you mentioned you made a comment on a post of mine a couple of days ago. It was a mental health thing, and that's been something that I've struggled with, and I won't get too much into my personal history.
Yeah.
But it's always been something that I've struggled with in the workplace and in society, finding my place, finding a routine, a career, and all that stuff that they try to get us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been my way of it not working out. But being back, that's been magnified. I've just been kind of sitting here, a lot of the days I don't really know what to do. I haven't tried to get my old job back, even though, my old boss had, left that open for me, which is great. But I was working construction, and I just have no desire to go back to that, and I should, because I need to make money.
Right. You need to live. You're forced to. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So I'm struggling with that quite a bit. Accidentally ripped my headphones out. But yeah. So that's certainly a big deal for me.
Yeah. And I want to say something about the PTSD that a lot of water protectors are talking about having from the violence and the trauma of the violence that was perpetrated on them, is that the term post-traumatic stress disorder is a misleading term. It's not a disorder at all. It's actually you responding quite normally to the trauma you just endured.
Right in order, with the universe, really.
Yeah, but it's an injury, so it needs to be doctored. It needs to be healed. It's your being asking you to look at something so that you can resolve it and move forward and heal yourself. So your body and your spirit and your brain is always trying to heal itself and reroute itself to a better mode. So it's not a disorder at all. Nor is autoimmune disease, going back to the physical level and how we respond to, eating processed and poisoned foods. Autoimmune disease is our body's natural response to eating poison. It's not a disorder. You're not weird, and that was what the medical community put on me, that I had all these weird sort of symptoms and, all this stuff. And it was just it's just my response to being poisoned. And we all have a different response, and we all have a different response to trauma too. So, again, just like you have the right to allow the water to heal you and to give back to you, you have the right to take the time that you need to put everything back in a place that makes sense to you again.
Well, I hope I don't take too much time because the money is running out,
Right. Yeah, I know. I'm right there with you. So we have.
But it's interesting, Oh, go ahead. No.
We have one more minute. I just wanted to get BeeBop back in here for the last minute here. If you have any last words.
And I really don't know what to say, Kara. I'm trying to remain positive, but I've been watching this go down since I was a little kid, and here we are, and now we have towns and cities that have poisoned water. Mm-hmm. So it's not, I don't even know about the word hope or hopeful. I guess I just ask for the children's sake and for the grandchildren's sake and their grandchildren's sake, that people actually make more sacrifice and stand up, because we don't have much more time, and
Thank you. We're coming to our end here. Thank you, BeeBop, and thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
hey, thank you guys.
Thank you, BeeBop. I'm very grateful.
Yeah, you too, bro.